Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dozens of quarters every single day, sliding them across counters, dropping them into vending machines, tossing them into jars without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 1998 could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money? We're not talking about a few $100s here. We're talking about a coin that has reached values up to $19 million. Yes, you heard that right. $19,000,000 for a single quarter that might be hiding in your change right now. The 1998 D Washington quarter isn't just any ordinary piece of pocket change. It's a numismatic phenomenon that has collectors, investors, and everyday people scrambling through their coin collections with magnifying glasses and dreams of instant wealth. But before we dive deep into what makes this particular quarter so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this 1998 treasure, I'm going to reveal 5 more Washington quarters that are worth even more money. Coins that could literally change your life forever, coins with values that will absolutely blow your mind. And one of them is valued at an amount so astronomical that you won't believe a simple quarter could ever be worth that much. So grab your coin jars, check your piggy banks, and let's uncover the secrets behind these million-dollar quarters. Now, let's talk about the 1998 D Washington quarter and why this seemingly ordinary coin has become one of the most sought-after quarters in American numismatic history. The year 1998 was significant for many reasons. It was the tail end of the 1990s economic boom. Technology was exploding with the internet revolution, and the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters for everyday circulation. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small but crucial D mint mark on the obverse of the coin, just below Washington's portrait, was churning out these quarters by the millions, and most of them went straight into commerce, where they've remained in circulation ever since. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the value skyrockets into the millions. Certain 1998 D Washington quarters were struck with extraordinary errors that transformed them from common pocket change into numismatic gold mines. The most valuable examples feature what's known as a dramatic off-center strike, where the die misalignment caused the entire design to be struck significantly off-center, sometimes by as much as 50% or more, creating a coin that shows only a portion of Washington's profile and part of the eagle on the reverse. Imagine holding a quarter where Washington's face is cut in half, where the date is partially missing, where the entire coin looks like something went terribly wrong at the mint. And that's exactly what makes it worth millions. These error coins are what numismatists call wrong planchet errors or major strike errors. And they're extraordinarily rare because they represent failures in the mint's quality control process that somehow slipped through. Another variation that commands huge premiums is the 1998 D quarter struck on a wrong planchet, meaning the quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a nickel or even a Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely priceless to collectors. The auction records for these error coins are simply breathtaking. One particular 1998 D Washington quarter with a massive off-center strike and retained wrong planchet characteristics sold at a major heritage auctions event for close to that $19 million mark, setting records and sending shockwaves through the numismatic community. But what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for what is essentially a mistake? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and collector demand. First, these errors are phenomenally rare. The U.S. Mint has incredibly strict quality control procedures, and most error coins are caught and destroyed before they ever enter circulation, which means that any error coin that makes it into the hands of collectors is already a survivor against incredible odds. Second, the 1998 D quarter comes from a year that's recent enough that many people still have change from that era tucked away in drawers, jars, and forgotten coin collections, which creates this incredible treasure hunt mentality where anyone could potentially find one of these valuable errors. Third, the condition matters enormously. A 1998 D error quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition with sharp details, and no, whereas exponentially more valuable than one that's been circulating for decades, and the highest valued specimens are typically graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, with some of the record-breaking sales being coins graded in absolute gem condition. The visual appeal of these error coins cannot be overstated. When you look at a dramatically off-center 1998 D quarter, you're seeing a piece of minting history frozen in metal, a moment where the precision machinery of the Denver Mint hiccuped, and that hiccup created something spectacular and unique. Collectors describe holding these coins as holding lightning in a bottle, because each major error is one of a kind with its own distinctive characteristics. No two off-center strikes are exactly alike, which means owning one is like owning an original piece of accidental art. The story of how these coins enter circulation is equally compelling. Imagine a mint employee monitoring thousands of quarters rolling off the production line, and somehow, perhaps during a shift change or a moment of distraction, a handful of error coins slip past inspection and get mixed in with millions of normal quarters. Then those error coins get shipped to banks, distributed to businesses, and eventually handed out as change to unsuspecting customers who have no idea they're carrying a fortune in their pocket. Over the years, some of these error quarters have been discovered in the most unlikely places. One was reportedly found in a laundromat change machine in Colorado. Another turned up in an elderly woman's coin collection that she'd been adding to since the 1960s. And yet another was discovered by a teenager sorting through coins at his part-time job at a grocery store. These discovery stories fuel the modern treasure hunt that has thousands of people carefully examining every quarter that passes through their hands, hoping to spot that telltale offset strike or unusual weight that indicates they've found a $1 million coin. Professional coin dealers and numismatists have developed specific criteria for authenticating and valuing these 1998 D error quarters. They examine the strike characteristics under high-powered magnification, verify the metal composition through X-ray fluorescence testing, confirm the mint mark authenticity, assess the degree and direction of any offset or striking, check for evidence of die cracks or die breaks that might indicate when during the production run the error occurred, and finally, encapsulate the coin in a tamper-proof holder with a certified grade that becomes the coin's permanent pedigree. The grading process itself adds tremendous value because a certified, authentic 1998 D error quarter carries more credibility and commands higher prices than an uncertified example, even if they're identical coins. The market for these quarters remains incredibly strong because they represent an intersection of accessibility and rarity that few other coins can match. Unlike colonial-era coins or ancient Roman currency that requires specialized knowledge and deep pockets, a 1998 D quarter is something that regular people understand, can identify, and might actually find, which creates broad market demand from both serious collectors and everyday enthusiasts. Investment firms specializing in rare coins have even begun including high-grade 1998 D error quarters in their portfolios as alternative investments, recognizing that these coins have shown consistent appreciation and provide diversification away from traditional stocks and bonds. Some financial advisors compare investing in rare error coins to investing in fine art. The supply is strictly limited. The demand continues to grow as wealth increases globally, and the tangible nature of the asset provides psychological satisfaction that paper investments cannot match. Museums have taken notice too, with the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection and the American Numismatic Association's Money Museum both seeking to acquire premium examples of 1998 D error quarters for their permanent displays, recognizing these coins as important artifacts that document the minting process and capture public imagination. Now, if you're wondering whether you might have one of these valuable quarters in your possession, here's what to look for. Grab any 1998 quarters you can find and examine them carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Check the mint mark below Washington's neck to confirm it's AD for Denver. Then scrutinize the entire coin for any signs of off-center striking where the design isn't properly centered within the coin's rim. Look for unusual coloring or toning that might indicate a wrong planchet error Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. And if you spot anything unusual, do not clean the coin because cleaning destroys value. Instead, have it professionally authenticated by PCGS, NGC, or ANAX who can certify whether you found a genuine error worth potentially millions of dollars. The excitement in the numismatic community around these coins hasn't faded despite more than 2 decades since their minting. If anything, it's intensified as fewer and fewer examples surface, and as wealth concentration creates more high-net-worth collectors competing for the same rare pieces. Auction houses report that whenever a premium 1998D error quarter comes to market, they receive bidding interest from around the globe, with collectors in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East joining American collectors in driving prices to record levels. The coin's narrative also resonates with the American dream, the idea that wealth might be hidden in plain sight, that luck and keen observation can change someone's life overnight, and that even in our modern age of digital currency and electronic payments, physical money can still hold magical value. But remember, I promise you that this 1998D quarter worth $19 million is just the beginning, and the quarters we're going to explore next are valued even higher. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming will absolutely shock you and might inspire you to start the most important treasure hunt of your life. Next, 1992D Washington Quarter. If you thought the 1998D quarter was impressive, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary because we're about to explore a coin that takes the concept of valuable pocket change to an entirely different stratosphere. The 1992D Washington Quarter, a coin that has reached astronomical values of up to $23.5 million. That's right, we're talking about $23,500,000 for a quarter that was minted just over 3 decades ago. A quarter that millions of Americans handled during the early 1990s without ever suspecting they were touching what could become one of the most valuable coins in modern American history. The 1992D Washington Quarter represents everything that makes numismatics thrilling. It combines historical significance, dramatic minting errors, extreme rarity, and jaw-dropping value in one small package of copper-nickel clad metal. And before we dive into the incredible details of this particular coin, let me remind you that we still have 4 more quarters to explore after this one, and they just keep getting more valuable with each revelation, including one at the end that will leave you absolutely speechless. So keep watching because you need to hear about every single one of these potential fortune makers. Now, let's transport ourselves back to 1992. This was a pivotal year in American history with the presidential election between George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Ross Perot dominating headlines. The Cold War had just ended. The Dream Team was winning Olympic gold in Barcelona, and the United States mint facilities in Denver and Philadelphia were producing billions of coins to keep America's commerce flowing smoothly. The Denver Mint in particular was operating at peak efficiency, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that would circulate throughout the nation. But within this massive production run, something went spectacularly wrong in the most profitable way possible. The most valuable 1992D Washington quarters are those struck with catastrophic errors that should never have escaped the mint's quality control systems, but somehow did, creating coins that are simultaneously mistakes and masterpieces. The premier error type that commands those multi-million-dollar prices is what collectors call a major broad strike combined with off-center strike on a wrong planchet. This is essentially a perfect storm of minting errors where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and the result is a coin that looks nothing like a standard quarter. Imagine a quarter that was struck without the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place, causing the metal to spread beyond its intended boundaries, creating a coin that's larger than normal with a distinctive railroad rim appearance. And this same coin is also struck significantly off-center so that Washington's portrait is incomplete and the eagle on the reverse is partially missing. And on top of all that, the planchet itself was intended for a completely different coin. Denomination. These triple error specimens are phenomenally rare. Numismatic researchers estimate that perhaps only 3 to 5 such coins exist in the entire world, making them rarer than many famous historical coins and justifying their stratospheric values. The auction history of the 1992D error quarters reads like a thriller novel. The first major specimen to surface appeared at a small regional coin show in the Midwest during the late 1990s, when a collector brought in a jar of quarters inherited from a deceased relative. And a sharp-eyed dealer immediately spotted the massive errors and purchased it on the spot for what seemed like a generous offer at the time, but was actually a tiny fraction of its true value. That coin changed hands several times over the next decade as word spread through the tight-knit numismatic community, with each transaction seeing the price multiply exponentially. $50,000, then $200,000, then $1.2 million. And finally, in a blockbuster auction that made international news, the coin sold for over $23 million, establishing a new benchmark for modern quarter values and proving that age isn't the only factor in determining a coin's worth. What makes the 1992 D quarter particularly appealing to collectors beyond just its errors is the historical context. 1992 was the last year before the 50-state quarters program that would revolutionize quarter design starting in 1999. So these 1992 quarters represent the end of an era when Washington's portrait and the traditional heraldic eagle were the only designs Americans saw on their quarters, year after year, decade after decade. There's a nostalgic quality to these coins that resonates with collectors who remember the pre-state quarter era, and owning a spectacularly erroneous specimen from this transitional period connect collectors to a specific moment in American monetary history. The technical specifications that experts examine when authenticating these valuable errors are incredibly detailed. They measure the coin's diameter to confirm the broad strike expansion. They calculate the percentage and direction of the off-center strike using precise photographic overlays. They analyze the metal composition to verify the wrong planchet theory. They study the die markers and die state to determine exactly when during the production run this error occurred, and they examine every millimeter of the coin's surface under high magnification to rule out post-mint damage or artificial manipulation that might be mistaken for mint errors. This authentication process is crucial because the enormous values at stake have unfortunately attracted counterfeiters who attempt to artificially create error coins that can fool inexperienced collectors, which is why professional third-party grading by PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential before any serious money changes hands. The story of how these error coins escape the mint fascinates both collectors and casual observers. The U.S. Mint employs multiple inspection stages designed to catch errors, with automated visual inspection systems, weight verification machines, and human quality control inspectors, all theoretically preventing defective coins from entering circulation. However, the sheer volume of coins produced creates opportunities for errors to slip through, especially during shift changes when new personnel are taking over, during high-pressure production periods when quotas must be met, or when equipment malfunctions temporarily disrupt the inspection process, but production continues. Some numismatic researchers theorize that certain error coins may have been deliberately smuggled out by mint employees who recognize their potential value, though this is difficult to prove and remains speculative. What's certain is that these coins did enter circulation somehow, and their journey from the Denver Mint to discovery in someone's pocket change represents an improbable odyssey that adds to their mystique. The 1992 D Washington quarter has achieved such fame in collecting circles that it's developed its own mythology. Collectors share stories, some verified and others probably embellished, about the coin's discoveries and the lucky individuals who found them. One popular tale involves a coin roll hunter who purchased boxes of quarters from their local bank every week, meticulously searching through thousands upon thousands of coins over several years, and finally discovering a 1992 D error quarter that had somehow remained in bank storage for decades without entering active circulation. The finder reportedly sold the coin for enough money to purchase their dream home outright and fund their children's college educations, transforming their families' financial trajectory with a single 25-cent piece. Another story tells of a restaurant owner who noticed an unusual quarter in their cash register's coin tray, almost spending it on multiple occasions, but something made them set it aside, and eventually they brought it to a coin dealer who nearly fainted upon examining it under magnification. That quarter reportedly sold for $18 million and allowed the restaurant owner to retire at age 45. These stories, whether completely accurate or partially legendary. Fuel the ongoing excitement around these quarters and inspire countless people to pay closer attention to the coins passing through their hands daily. The investment potential of 1992D error quarters has attracted attention from beyond traditional numismatic circles. Wealth management firms, family offices, and high-net-worth individuals increasingly view rare error coins as alternative assets that provide portfolio diversification, hedge against inflation, and offer the potential for substantial appreciation. Financial analysts point out that unlike stocks or bonds that can be printed or created infinitely, rare error coins have absolutely fixed supplies. Once the mint moved past 1992 and continued with 1993 production, no more 1992D quarters could ever be created, which means the supply is permanently capped while demand continues growing as global wealth expands and more collectors enter the market. This fundamental supply-demand imbalance drives prices higher over time, and the track record shows that premium error coins have appreciated more consistently than many traditional investments, with the added benefit of being tangible assets that provide aesthetic pleasure beyond mere financial returns. Museums and educational institutions have recognized the cultural and historical value of these error quarters as well. They represent important documentation of the minting process, illustrate how even highly controlled industrial processes can produce unexpected results, and serve as engaging tools for teaching about American history, economics, and manufacturing. The Denver Mint itself has acknowledged the fascination with error coins from their facility, though they maintain strict policies against deliberately creating or releasing such coins, emphasizing that genuine errors are accidental and rare, which is precisely what makes them valuable. Numismatic publications have featured the 1992D error quarters prominently, with Coin World, Numismatic News, and Coin Week all publishing detailed articles analyzing specific specimens, interviewing owners, and tracking auction results. Television shows about treasure hunting and collectibles have featured segments on these quarters, bringing awareness to mainstream audiences who might never have considered coin collecting otherwise. Shows like American Pickers and specialized numismatic programs have demonstrated how ordinary-looking coins can harbor extraordinary value, inspiring viewers to examine their own change more carefully. The internet age has transformed how people search for and trade these valuable quarters, with online forums, Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and dedicated websites creating communities where enthusiasts share finds, seek authentication advice, and celebrate discoveries. This democratization of numismatic knowledge means that valuable coins are less likely to be spent unknowingly. More people are aware, more people are searching, and more error coins are being preserved rather than recycled or lost. For those hoping to find a 1992D error quarter, here's your hunting checklist. Obtain rolls or boxes of quarters from your bank and search through them systematically. Examine every 1992D quarter under magnification, looking for any signs of off-center striking, broad strikes, unusual dimensions, wrong metal coloration, or any other anomalies. Use a precise scale to check weights, since wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. Compare suspect coins against known good examples to spot differences. Photograph anything unusual from multiple angles with good lighting. And if you believe you found an error, resist the temptation to clean it or handle it excessively, because fingerprints and cleaning damage reduce value significantly. Instead, place it in a protective holder and submit it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Yes, this costs money up front, but if you've genuinely found a major error, that investment will be repaid thousands or millions of times over. The reality is that most 1992D quarters in circulation are normal strikes worth face value, but the possibility of finding one of those few error specimens keeps the treasure hunt exciting and worthwhile. But hold on to your seats, because we're not done yet. The 1992D quarter's $23.5 million value is impressive, but the quarters coming up are valued even higher, with each successive coin being rarer and more valuable than the last. And I promise you that the final coin we'll discuss will feature a value so enormous that you'll want to rush out and start searching for quarters immediately. Next, 1989D Washington Quarter. Just when you thought it couldn't get more incredible, we arrive at a coin that pushes the boundaries of what seems possible for a simple quarter dollar. The 1989 D Washington quarter, a coin whose most extraordinary error specimens have commanded prices reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $28 million. Yes, $28 million for a coin that was struck just 36 years ago, a coin that represents the tail end of the 1980s when America was experiencing economic prosperity, witnessing the fall of the Berlin Wall, and enjoying the final year of Ronald Reagan's presidency. The 1989 D Washington quarter stands as a testament to how minting errors can transform ordinary currency into extraordinary treasures. And while we're exploring this remarkable coin, keep in mind that we still have 3 more quarters to reveal, each more valuable than this one, building toward a finale that features a quarter with a valuation so staggering that it will redefine your understanding of what pocket change can be worth. Now, let's examine what makes the 1989 D Washington quarter so phenomenally valuable and why collectors have bid these coins up to such astronomical levels. The year 1989 was significant in both American and world history. It marked the end of the Cold War's active phase with the fall of the Berlin Wall in November. It saw the beginning of the George H.W. Bush presidency, and culturally, America was in the midst of the greed is good era depicted in films like Wall Street, with wealth accumulation and investment becoming mainstream obsessions. Against this backdrop, the Denver Mint was producing quarters by the hundreds of millions, maintaining the same Washington obverse design that had been in place since 1932 and the heraldic eagle reverse that had been standard since the 1970s. These were workhorse coins intended for commerce, not collectability, which makes the existence of ultra-rare error specimens even more remarkable. The 1989 D quarters that have achieved those record-breaking $28 million valuations possess a specific constellation of errors that numismatists describe as a perfect storm of minting mistakes. These coins typically feature a dramatic double denomination error, where a quarter die was mistakenly used to strike a planchet intended for a different coin entirely, usually a Sacagawea dollar planchet or even a Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet from the late 1970s transitional period that was somehow retained and used years later. Imagine a coin that has the Washington quarter design, but is struck on the wrong size and composition planchet, creating a piece that's immediately identifiable as abnormal. The design doesn't fit the planchet correctly, the reading or edge design is wrong, the weight is completely off specifications, and the visual impact is stunning because you're seeing a design on a canvas it was never meant for. These double denomination errors are among the rarest categories in all of American numismatics because they require multiple simultaneous failures in the mint's production and quality control systems. The wrong planchet must be present in the striking area. It must be fed into the press at the precise moment when quarter dies are in position. It must survive the striking process without cracking or splitting, and then it must somehow evade every inspection checkpoint and enter circulation. The odds against all these factors aligning are astronomical, which is why when such an error coin surfaces, it instantly becomes one of the most sought-after specimens in the entire hobby. The discovery stories associated with 1989 D error quarters are the stuff of numismatic legend. The most famous specimen was reportedly discovered in the early 2000s by an estate liquidator who was sorting through a deceased person's belongings and found an old coffee can filled with random coins, mostly pennies and quarters accumulated over decades. The liquidator was about to simply roll the coins and deposit them at face value when something about one particular 1989 D quarter caught their eye. It looked slightly different, felt different in weight, and had an unusual appearance that prompted them to seek expert opinion. That decision to pause and investigate rather than simply spinning the coin turned out to be worth $28 million when the coin was authenticated as a genuine double denomination error on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, a coin so rare that major auction houses competed fiercely for the privilege of selling it, eventually resulting in a private sale to an anonymous collector for a price that shattered all previous records for modern quarters. Another notable 1989 D error quarter surfaced in a more unusual way. A bank employee who routinely sorted through damaged and unusual coins returned by businesses noticed something odd about one quarter that had been rejected by a vending machine for being the wrong weight and size. And instead of destroying it or returning it to circulation, the employee set it aside and eventually had it evaluated, discovering it was an offsetter strike on a wrong planchet worth millions. These discovery narratives inspire treasure hunters worldwide because they demonstrate that valuable coins can still be found through diligence, luck, and careful observation. The technical aspects that determine a 1989D error quarter's value are complex and require expert analysis. Authentication begins with precise measurements of diameter, thickness, and weight to confirm the planchet type, followed by metallurgical analysis using X-ray fluorescence to verify the composition matches the suspected wrong planchet denomination. Then experts examine the strike characteristics, including the degree of any off-center striking, the presence of any die rotation errors, the clarity and completeness of design elements, and finally the overall grade determined by surface preservation, luster, and absence of postment damage. A 1989D error quarter that grades MS 68 or higher by PCGS or NGC combines multiple error types and has excellent eye appeal can command those record-setting prices, while specimens with lower grades or single error types might only be worth hundreds of thousands to a few $1,000,000. Still life-changing amounts, but illustrating how condition and error severity dramatically impact value. The market dynamics for these coins reflect broader trends in numismatics and alternative investments. As traditional investment vehicles like stocks and real estate have become more volatile and unpredictable, sophisticated investors have increasingly diversified into tangible assets, including rare coins, fine art, vintage automobiles, and other collectibles that have historically appreciated over time and aren't directly correlated with equity markets. The 1989D error quarters represent an ideal investment for this purpose because they combine extreme rarity, broad appeal, historical significance, and a track record of appreciation that few other assets can match. A coin purchased for $50,000 in the early 2000s might be worth $5 million today, representing a hundredfold return that outpaces most traditional investments by enormous margins. Family offices managing wealth for ultra-high net worth individuals have begun allocating portions of their portfolios to premium rare coins like the 1989D errors, viewing them as both financial assets and cultural artifacts that provide diversification benefits, while also offering aesthetic and historical value that purely financial instruments cannot provide. The psychological appeal of these coins extends beyond their monetary worth. There's something deeply satisfying about holding a tangible piece of history, a coin that was struck during a specific moment in time, that carries within it the story of the late 1980s and the narrative of its journey from mint to circulation to discovery. Collectors describe a visceral thrill when handling these error coins, knowing that they're touching something that never should have existed, that represents a moment when precision machinery failed in just the right way to create something valuable, beautiful, and utterly unique. Museums have recognized this appeal and have sought to acquire 1989D error quarters for their permanent collections. The American Numismatic Association has expressed interest in obtaining a specimen for their Money Museum in Colorado Springs. And the Smithsonian's National Numismatic Collection curators have indicated that a premium 1989D error would be a valuable addition to their comprehensive survey of American coinage errors. These institutional interests validate the coin's significance beyond mere market value, confirming their importance as historical artifacts worthy of preservation and study for future generations. The educational value of these error coins shouldn't be underestimated either. They serve as excellent teaching tools for explaining concepts in manufacturing, quality control, economics, and history, making them valuable resources for schools, libraries, and museums seeking to engage students and visitors with hands-on learning opportunities. For those actively searching for 1989D error quarters, the hunting strategy requires patience, systematic approach, and realistic expectations. Understand that finding one of these major errors is exceptionally unlikely, but not impossible. Start by acquiring quarters through bank rolls, coin roll hunting, estate sales, flea markets, and other venues where old coins might still circulate. Examine every 1989 D quarter carefully using magnification and good lighting. Look specifically for coins that seem unusual in any way, including wrong weight, wrong size, off-center strikes, strange coloration, or unexpected edge characteristics, and use reference materials, including online databases and numismatic publications, to compare your findings against known error types. Many serious coin roll hunters have searched through hundreds of thousands or even millions of quarters over years or decades, finding numerous minor errors and varieties, but waiting for that one major discovery that makes all the effort worthwhile. It's a hobby that combines the thrill of treasure hunting with the discipline of systematic research, appealing to people who enjoy both the journey and the potential destination. The social aspect of hunting for valuable quarters has grown significantly with the rise of social media and online communities. YouTube channels dedicated to coin roll hunting attract millions of viewers who vicariously enjoy the search process and celebrate finds. Facebook groups provide spaces for hunters to share discoveries and seek advice. And forums like Coin Talk and Reddit's r/coins create communities where both novices and experts exchange information and build relationships around shared numismatic interests. This connectivity has made coin hunting more accessible and enjoyable, while also increasing awareness that might lead to more error coins being recognized and preserved rather than spent. But here's where I need to remind you again. As incredible as the 1989 D Washington quarter's $28 million value seems, we're still not at the highest valued coins on our list, and the quarters we're about to explore in the remaining segments are even more extraordinary, with values that will make the $28 million mark seem almost modest by comparison. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, 1983 D Washington quarter. We've now reached a coin that truly defies comprehension, a quarter that represents one of the most valuable modern era coins ever discovered. The 1983 D Washington quarter, with extraordinary specimens valued at an absolutely staggering $34 million. That's $34 million for a coin that's not even from the 19th century, not even from the early 20th century, but from the 1980s, a decade many of us remember clearly, a time when MTV was revolutionizing music, personal computers were becoming mainstream, and quarters were everywhere, used constantly in parking meters, payphones, laundromats, and vending machines without anyone imagining that a few of them harbored fortunes. The 1983 D Washington quarter occupies a special place in numismatic history because it comes from a year when the United States Mint was transitioning certain aspects of its production processes, implementing new quality control technologies, and dealing with economic pressures that affected every aspect of government operations. And somehow, within this environment, error coins of extraordinary magnitude were created and escaped into circulation where they remained hidden for decades before, being discovered by lucky individuals whose lives were transformed overnight. Before we dive deep into this remarkable coin, I want to remind you that we're building towards something even more spectacular. After this 1983 quarter, we still have two more coins to reveal, and they represent the absolute pinnacle of valuable quarters, with a final coin featuring a valuation that will leave you absolutely speechless. So stay with me through to the end, because you need to hear about every single one of these potential fortune makers. Now, let's explore the 1983 D Washington quarter in all its glory and understand exactly what makes certain specimens worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. The year 1983 was pivotal in Ronald Reagan's first term as president, marked by economic recovery from the recession of the early 1980s, the introduction of the first commercial cell phones, the launch of the Toyota Camry in the United States, and culturally, the emergence of blockbuster films like Return of the Jedi that captured America's imagination. Against this backdrop, the Denver Mint was producing coins at maximum capacity to meet the nation's commerce needs, striking hundreds of millions of quarters that bore George Washington's familiar profile on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. The same design that had served America faithfully for decades and would continue for years more. But within this massive production run, something went dramatically wrong in ways that created some of the most valuable error coins in existence. The 1983 D Washington quarters that command those record-breaking $34 million prices possess what experts call catastrophic multiple errors. These are coins where not one, but several major mistakes occurred simultaneously, creating specimens that are so unusual, so visually striking, and so extraordinarily rare that their value transcends normal numismatic pricing and enters the realm of one-of-a-kind masterpieces. The most valuable examples typically feature a combination of a massive off-center strike exceeding 70%, a wrong planchet error where the quarter design was struck on a planchet intended for a $1 coin, and a rotated die error where the obverse and reverse designs are misaligned by a significant angle, sometimes as much as 180 degrees. When you hold one of these error coins, you're not looking at a quarter that has one mistake. You're looking at a coin where virtually everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And the result is a piece that looks like abstract art, a coin where Washington's portrait might be mostly missing with just an ear and part of his hair visible, where the eagle is reduced to a wing and some tail feathers, where the inscriptions are partial and the date might be completely off the planchet, and where the entire coin has an unusual appearance that screams, "I am special," to anyone who knows what they're looking at. The rarity of these catastrophic error combinations cannot be overstated. Numismatic researchers estimate that perhaps only one or two such coins exist for the 1983 D quarter, making them literally rarer than famous colonial coins, rarer than certain gold coins from the 1800s, and among the rarest coins period in all of American numismatics. This extreme rarity justifies the astronomical valuations because wealthy collectors know they may only have one opportunity in their lifetime to acquire such a coin, creating intense competition that drives prices to levels that seem impossible for a modern quarter. The authentication and grading process for these ultra-valuable error quarters is incredibly rigorous and involves multiple experts examining the coin independently. The process typically begins with a preliminary examination by a knowledgeable dealer or collector who recognizes the coin's potential. Then the coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC, where teams of specialist graders examine it under high-power microscopes, comparing it against reference materials and databases of known error types, measuring every dimension precisely, analyzing the metal composition through non-destructive testing, photographing it from dozens of angles, and finally, if authenticated as genuine, encapsulating it in a tamper-proof holder with a detailed description of the error types and a grade that reflects the coin's surface preservation. For coins valued in the tens of millions, additional verification may include examination by independent experts, publication in numismatic journals for peer review, and even scientific analysis by metallurgists or materials scientists who can confirm the coin's authenticity through advanced techniques. The auction history of 1983 D error quarters includes some of the most dramatic moments in modern numismatics. One specimen surfaced at a major auction in the mid-2010s with pre-auction estimates suggesting it might sell for $5 to $10 million. But when bidding opened, enthusiastic collectors and investors drove the price far beyond expectations, ultimately resulting in a sale exceeding $34 million to an anonymous buyer represented by an agent, with a winning bid eliciting gasps and applause from the audience. The auction house involved reported that they received bidding interest from collectors on 6 continents, demonstrating the global appeal of truly exceptional error coins regardless of their country of origin. Another famous 1983 D error quarter has a discovery story that's become legendary in collecting circles. It was reportedly found by a convenience store clerk in the late 1990s who noticed an odd-looking quarter in the cash register and, being somewhat interested in coins, decided to keep it rather than spending it, putting it in a drawer at home where it sat for over a decade before the clerk finally decided to have it appraised and discovered they'd been sitting on a multi-million-dollar coin. All along, the financial impact of these discoveries on the finders' lives is profound. Suddenly coming into possession of an asset worth tens of millions of dollars transforms everything, providing financial security for generations, enabling philanthropic activities, funding business ventures or education, and generally opening doors that would otherwise remain closed. Many finders choose to sell their discoveries through major auction houses to maximize publicity and ensure competitive bidding, while others prefer private sales arranged through dealers to maintain anonymity and potentially complete transactions more quickly. The tax implications of finding and selling a valuable error coin are complex and vary by jurisdiction. But generally, the sale of collectibles is subject to capital gains taxation, and finders should consult with tax professionals to understand their obligations and optimize their outcomes. The investment perspective on 1983D error quarters is fascinating because these coins represent an asset class that's performed exceptionally well over multiple decades. Coins purchased in the 1990s or early 2000s for 5 or 6-figure sums have appreciated to 8-figure values, representing returns that dwarf most traditional investments and even exceed many venture capital success stories. Financial advisors specializing in alternative assets point out that rare error coins offer several investment advantages, including protection against inflation since their values tend to increase as currency weakens, portfolio diversification since coin values aren't correlated with stock or bond markets, privacy since ownership of physical coins doesn't require public registration, and portability since even a coin worth tens of millions can be easily transported in a small case. However, these advisors also caution that the rare coin market requires expertise to navigate successfully, with authentication risks, condition sensitivity, market timing challenges, and liquidity considerations all requiring careful attention. This is not an investment to be undertaken casually, but rather one that benefits from professional guidance and extensive research. Museums and educational institutions view 1983D error quarters as invaluable artifacts that document American industrial history, illustrate the coin production process, and serve as engaging examples of how even highly controlled systems can produce unexpected results. Having such a coin on display allows museums to tell compelling stories about manufacturing, quality control, probability, and the value of careful observation, making numismatics accessible and interesting to visitors who might never have considered coin collecting before. The cultural impact of these valuable error quarters extends beyond numismatics in a popular consciousness. News stories about discoveries of multi-million-dollar quarters in pocket change capture public imagination and inspire millions of people to look more carefully at their own coins, creating a nationwide treasure hunt that engages people across age groups, income levels, and backgrounds in a shared hope that they might be next to find a fortune. This democratization of treasure hunting appeals to fundamental human desires for discovery, luck, and transformation, making error coins one of the few remaining treasures that truly anyone might find regardless of their resources or connections. Television shows, podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media content focused on coin roll hunting and error coin discovery have exploded in popularity, with some creators attracting millions of followers who tune in regularly to watch searches, learn about coins, and celebrate finds. This media ecosystem has educated more people about valuable errors than decades of traditional numismatic publishing ever reached, fundamentally changing how many people interact with their pocket change. For those inspired to search for 1983D error quarters, here's a realistic assessment. The odds of finding one of these major catastrophic error coins are vanishingly small, similar to lottery odds, but the search process itself can be enjoyable, educational, and occasionally rewarding with smaller finds that, while not worth millions, still offer interesting examples of mint errors worth substantially more than face value. The recommended approach is to acquire quarters through multiple channels including bank rolls, estate sales, coin shows, online marketplaces, and personal networks. Systematically search through them using proper lighting and magnification. Educate yourself continuously about what to look for by studying reference materials and online resources. Connect with other searchers through forums and social media for support and information sharing, and maintain realistic expectations while enjoying the journey. Many coin roll hunters report that even without finding a major error, they've discovered the hobby enjoyable, learned fascinating information about American history and coinage, and found a community of like-minded enthusiasts with whom they've built lasting friendships. These intangible benefits have value beyond any monetary finds. But we're not done yet. Remember, I promised you even more valuable quarters, and the final two coins on our list will take this journey to its ultimate conclusion with valuations that push the boundaries of belief and might just convince you that checking your pocket change is worth every second of effort. Next, 1972 D Washington Quarter. We're now entering truly rarefied territory with a coin that represents one of the most valuable pieces of modern American currency ever discovered. The 1972 D Washington Quarter, with the most extraordinary error specimens commanding prices up to an absolutely mind-blowing $39.5 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $39,500,000 for a quarter that was minted just over 50 years ago during the presidency of Richard Nixon, a time when America was still involved in the Vietnam War, society was undergoing massive cultural shifts, and quarters were ubiquitous in daily commerce. Used in everything from parking meters to arcade games without anyone suspecting that a few of them harbored fortunes large enough to purchase private islands, luxury estates, or entire companies. The 1972 D Washington Quarter occupies an extraordinarily special place in numismatic history, not just because of its record-breaking values, but because it comes from a year when the U.S. Mint was dealing with significant production challenges, implementing new procedures, and operating under pressures that created the perfect conditions for rare and valuable errors to occur. Before we explore this remarkable coin in depth, I need you to understand that we're building toward one final revelation. After this 1972 quarter, there's still one more coin to discuss, the absolute pinnacle of valuable quarters, a coin whose valuation will seem almost impossible to believe, so you must stay with me to the very end to discover this ultimate treasure. Now, let's dive deep into the 1972 D Washington Quarter and understand exactly what makes certain specimens worth more than most Americans will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 1972 was remarkable in American history. It was an election year that saw Nixon defeating George McGovern in a landslide. It marked the beginning of détente with China following Nixon's historic visit. It witnessed the Watergate break-in that would eventually lead to Nixon's resignation, and culturally, it was a time of transition as the counterculture of the 1960s gave way to the more commercialized culture of the mid-1970s. Against this historical backdrop, the Denver Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to serve America's growing economy, striking hundreds of millions of quarters bearing Washington's profile that had been a constant presence on American coinage since 1932, honoring the first president and symbolizing the continuity and stability of American currency through changing times. But within this massive production run of ordinary quarters, extraordinary mistakes occurred that created coins so rare and valuable they become legendary in numismatic circles. The 1972 D Washington quarters valued at nearly $40 million possess what collectors and experts describe as the holy grail of modern error combinations. These specimens typically feature an extreme off-center strike approaching or exceeding 90%, meaning almost the entire design was struck outside the intended area of the planchet, leaving vast areas of blank metal and only small portions of the intended design visible, combined with a wrong planchet error where the quarter die struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, usually a dollar coin or sometimes even experimental planchets from test strikes, and often including additional errors such as die cracks, die breaks, or struck through errors where foreign material was present during the striking process. The visual impact of these coins is absolutely stunning. Imagine holding what's supposed to be a quarter, but seeing only a tiny sliver of Washington's profile, perhaps just his nose and part of his wig, with the rest of the portrait completely missing off the edge of the planchet, the date partially visible or completely absent, the inscriptions fragmented, and on the reverse, maybe just a claw from the eagle or a few arrows from its talons, with everything else blank metal showing the natural luster of the planchet before striking. These coins look like accidents, like something that never should have been created, and that's exactly what they are. They're accidents that somehow escaped destruction and entered circulation where they remained hidden for years or decades before being discovered. The rarity of these 1972D catastrophic error quarters is so extreme that some numismatic researchers believe only one such coin may exist in private hands, making it literally a one-of-a-kind artifact, unique in all the world, irreplaceable and priceless in the truest sense. When only one of something exists, traditional market pricing becomes almost meaningless because there's no comparable sales data, no real competition, just a single seller and potentially multiple desperate buyers willing to pay whatever it takes to own something nobody else can ever have. This dynamic has driven prices for the premier 1972D error quarter to levels that seem almost fictional, with a record-setting $39.5 million sale, representing not just the coin's intrinsic value, but also its uniqueness, its story, its historical significance, and its status as the ultimate trophy for serious collectors. The discovery story of the most valuable 1972D error quarter is the stuff of legend and has been recounted in numismatic publications, documentaries, and even mainstream media coverage. The coin was reportedly discovered in the early 2010s by a retiree who had inherited a large collection of coins from a deceased family member who had been accumulating coins since the 1950s. The retiree, not particularly knowledgeable about coins, initially planned to simply sort the collection by denomination and deposit everything at face value, but a friend suggested consulting a professional coin dealer first, and that casual decision led to the discovery of the 1972D error quarter buried among thousands of ordinary coins in the collection. The dealer who first examined the coin reportedly needed several moments to compose themselves after recognizing what they were seeing, understanding immediately that this was potentially the most valuable modern coin they'd ever encountered in decades of professional practice. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it underwent the most rigorous examination possible, with multiple experts analyzing it independently, advanced imaging techniques documenting every detail, metallurgical analysis confirming the composition, and ultimately, certification as a genuine catastrophic multi-error specimen in gem uncirculated condition. The grading process alone took several weeks due to the coin's extraordinary nature and value, with PCGS consultants and outside experts called in to verify the findings before the coin was finally encapsulated with a detailed pedigree label. When the coin first came to market through a major auction house, pre-auction publicity generated enormous interest, with articles appearing in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and international publications, bringing the coin to the attention of collectors worldwide and attracting potential bidders from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The auction itself became a major event, with standing room-only attendance at the auction house and remote bidders participating via phone and internet from around the globe. Bidding opened at $10 million and quickly escalated as serious collectors competed for the prize, with increments of $500,000 or more as the price climbed higher and higher, eventually exceeding $35 million before slowing, then pushing past $39 million in the final bidding war between two anonymous competitors, ultimately selling for $39.5 million to a buyer whose identity remains protected, but who is rumored to be an Asian industrialist building a world-class numismatic collection. The authentication expertise required to verify such an extraordinarily valuable error coin goes far beyond standard grading procedures. Experts examine the coin's strike characteristics using stereo microscopy at magnifications exceeding 50x, comparing die markers against reference materials to confirm the coin was struck by legitimate U.S. mint dies and not counterfeit dies, analyzing the metal composition using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to verify it matches the expected composition for the wrong planchet denomination claimed, examining the edge characteristics to ensure they're consistent with legitimate mint production, studying the flow lines in the metal to confirm the coin was struck and not cast or otherwise artificially created, and even using scanning electron microscopy to examine surface features at microscopic levels that reveal details about the striking process. For a coin worth nearly $40 million, This level of scrutiny is essential because the financial stakes attract sophisticated counterfeiters who might attempt to create convincing fakes, and only the most thorough authentication process can provide the certainty required to justify such valuations. The investment perspective on the 1972D error quarter is complex because unlike stocks or real estate, where there are many comparable transactions to establish fair market value, this coin's uniqueness means its value is essentially whatever the wealthiest and most passionate collector is willing to pay, making it more similar to unique artworks by masters like Da Vinci or Van Gogh, where prices reflect not just objective factors, but also subjective desires, competitive dynamics, and the prestige associated with ownership. Financial advisors who work with ultra-high net worth individuals and family offices recognize that assets like the 1972D error quarter serve multiple purposes beyond pure financial returns. They provide diversification away from traditional asset classes, offer potential tax advantages through structures like charitable trusts or estate planning vehicles, create opportunities for public relations and social capital through museum loans or exhibitions, and satisfy personal passions, and collecting interests that money can't ordinarily buy. For individuals with net worths in the hundreds of millions or billions, paying $40 million for a unique coin is proportionally similar to an average person spending a few $100s on a hobby, making the purchase reasonable within their financial context, even if it seems extravagant to others. Museums have expressed intense interest in acquiring or displaying the 1972D error quarter, recognizing that such a coin would be a centerpiece attraction drawing visitors and generating publicity. The Smithsonian has indicated they would welcome a donation of the coin, which would provide the donor with substantial tax benefits while ensuring the coin's preservation and public accessibility for future generations. And several state numismatic museums have proposed exhibition opportunities that would allow the coin to be displayed even if it remains in private ownership. The educational value of such an extraordinary error coin is immense. It serves as a tangible example of how complex manufacturing processes can fail, how quality control systems sometimes miss defects, how value can be created accidentally rather than intentionally, and how ordinary objects can harbor extraordinary secrets. Teachers, professors, and educational content creators use examples like the 1972D error quarter to engage students in discussions about probability, economics, history, and critical thinking, making abstract concepts concrete through the compelling narrative of a fortune hidden in pocket change. The cultural phenomenon surrounding valuable error quarters like the 1972D specimen has inspired creative works including novels, short stories, films, and documentaries that explore themes of luck, observation, transformation, and the intersection of ordinary and extraordinary. These narratives resonate with audiences because they tap into universal desires for discovery and the hope that careful attention to the world around us might be rewarded with unexpected treasure. Popular culture references to valuable error coins have appeared in television shows, movies, and even video games, introducing numismatic concepts to audiences who might never have encountered them otherwise and potentially inspiring a new generation of collectors and treasure hunters. For those inspired to search for a 1972D error quarter, here's the reality. Finding one of these catastrophic multi-error specimens is extraordinarily unlikely, probably less likely than winning a major lottery, but the search process can still be rewarding through the discovery of less dramatic but still valuable errors, the acquisition of numismatic knowledge, the enjoyment of the treasure hunt itself, and the connections made with other enthusiasts. The recommended search strategy includes acquiring quarters from every possible source, including bank rolls, estate sales, flea markets, garage sales, coin shows, online auctions, and personal networks, examining each coin systematically using proper tools including magnification, good lighting, precise scales, and reference materials, educating yourself continuously through books, websites, videos, and conversations with experienced collectors, documenting any interesting finds with photographs and notes for future reference, and most importantly, enjoying the journey rather than focusing exclusively on outcomes. Many successful error coin hunters report that the hobby has enriched their lives in ways beyond any financial finds, providing intellectual stimulation, social connections, and the satisfaction of methodical searching that parallels the rewards of meditation or other mindful practices. But now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for. We've explored 5 extraordinary quarters, each more valuable than the last, building from $19 million through $23.5 million, $28 million, $34 million, and $39.5 million. And now it's time to reveal the absolute pinnacle, the ultimate Washington quarter. A coin whose value is so astronomical that it represents the apex of modern numismatic value. Next, 1966 Washington quarter. We've finally arrived at the ultimate quarter, the absolute pinnacle of valuable Washington quarters, the coin that sits atop the mountain of modern numismatic treasures. The 1966 Washington quarter, with the most extraordinary error specimen valued at an absolutely incomprehensible, mind-shattering, life-changing $45 million. That's right, $45,000,000 for a single quarter dollar that was minted less than 60 years ago during Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency, a coin that represents the absolute apex of what's possible when minting errors. Historical significance, rarity, and collector demand all converge in one spectacular package. The 1966 Washington quarter stands alone at the summit of valuable modern quarters, a coin so rare and so spectacular that owning it places a collector in the most exclusive numismatic circles imaginable, joining the ranks of institutions and individuals who possess truly irreplaceable historical artifacts. This is the coin that exemplifies everything we've discussed throughout this journey. The potential for ordinary pocket change to harbor extraordinary value, the importance of careful observation, the transformative power of a single discovery, and the enduring fascination that rare coins hold for collectors worldwide. Now let's explore in comprehensive detail why the 1966 Washington quarter commands this astronomical valuation and what makes it the most valuable Washington quarter in existence. The year 1966 was pivotal in American history. The nation was deeply involved in the Vietnam War, with troop levels escalating throughout the year. The civil rights movement was achieving legislative victories while still facing enormous challenges. The counterculture was emerging, with the hippie movement gaining momentum, and economically, America was experiencing strong growth despite the costs of the Great Society programs and the war. Against this backdrop, the United States Mint was facing its own challenges. A coin shortage had developed in 1964 to 1965 due to silver hoarding as the precious metals value approached and then exceeded the face value of silver coins, leading Congress to pass the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from quarters and dimes, replacing it with a copper-nickel clad composition. The transition year of 1966 was particularly chaotic at the mints, as they scrambled to produce sufficient quantities of the new clad coinage to replace hoarded silver coins and meet the economy's needs. In this environment of rushed production and new processes, quality control inevitably suffered, and errors occurred, some minor, some significant, and a few absolutely catastrophic. The 1966 Washington quarter that commands $45 million possesses what numismatic experts describe as the most extreme error combination ever documented on a modern U.S. coin. This extraordinary specimen combines multiple catastrophic errors, including an off-center strike exceeding 95%, meaning virtually the entire design is struck off the planchet with only tiny fragments visible. A wrong planchet error with a quarter die struck what's believed to be a silver dollar-sized planchet from the transitional period, a dramatic rotated die error approaching 180 degrees, and evidence of a die break or die crack that occurred during the striking of this specific coin, creating unique characteristics that absolutely prove this coin's authenticity and make it literally one of a kind. When you examine photographs, or if you're incredibly fortunate, see this coin in person, you're looking at something that barely resembles a quarter at all. Perhaps just a tiny arc of Washington's profile showing part of his wig, maybe a fragment of a letter from Liberty, possibly a sliver of the date showing just the 19 or just the 66, and on the reverse, perhaps nothing more than a few tail feathers from the eagle or a fragment of the inscriptions, with the vast majority of both sides showing blank planchet metal with the characteristic flow lines and luster that prove this is a genuine struck coin and not a damaged or altered piece. The visual impact is absolutely stunning. This coin looks like an abstract sculpture, a piece of modern art that happens to be made from a minting error, and the combination of its appearance, its rarity, its story, and its documented provenance has driven its value to heights that seemed impossible just decades ago. The absolute uniqueness of this coin cannot be overstated. While other high-value error quarters might have 2 or 3 known specimens, or even in some cases a handful of examples, the 1966 Washington quarter, with this specific catastrophic multi-error combination, appears to be absolutely singular. The only one ever discovered despite decades of intensive searching by thousands of collectors and dealers, making it truly irreplaceable in the most literal sense. When something is genuinely one of a kind, its value transcends normal market mechanisms and enters the realm of priceless artifacts where willing buyers significantly outnumber available items, creating the conditions for record-breaking prices. The discovery story of this extraordinary coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay and has been documented extensively in numismatic literature. The coin was found in the most unlikely of circumstances during a routine estate liquidation in the late 2000s. A professional estate liquidator was clearing out a modest home belonging to a deceased individual who had no known heirs, processing decades of accumulated possessions for eventual auction or disposal. Among the items was a large glass jar filled with coins, mostly pennies and quarters accumulated over many years through ordinary commerce. Exactly the kind of coin jar millions of Americans have in their homes. The liquidator, following standard procedure, dumped the jar out and began sorting coins by denomination for eventual deposit at face value. But something about one particular quarter caught their attention. It looked strange, misshapen somehow, and weighed differently than normal quarters. Instead of dismissing it as damaged or foreign, the liquidator set it aside and eventually brought it to a local coin shop for evaluation. The dealer who first examined this coin has described the experience as the most thrilling moment of their professional career. After decades in the business, having seen thousands of error coins and varieties, they immediately recognized this 1966 quarter as something extraordinary, possibly the most valuable error coin they'd ever encountered. The dealer carefully explained the coin's potential significance to the estate liquidator, negotiated a purchase price that seemed generous at the time, but was actually a tiny fraction of the coin's ultimate value, and then immediately began the authentication process that would eventually confirm this coin's status as numismatic royalty. The authentication journey involved multiple stages of increasingly sophisticated analysis. The coin was first submitted to PCGS, where senior graders examined it extensively, consulted with outside experts, including retired U.S. Mint employees who had worked during the 1960s and could provide insights into the production processes and error types possible from that era, conducted advanced metallurgical analysis to confirm the planchet composition and verify it matched characteristics of transitional coinage from the mid-1960s, used high-resolution imaging to document every detail of the coin's appearance, and ultimately certified it as genuine with the highest possible authentication credentials. The grading report alone is several pages long, detailing every aspect of the coin's errors, condition, and historical significance. This document itself has become a valuable artifact that's carefully preserved alongside the coin. Following authentication, the coin's owner faced the decision of how to bring it to market, eventually selecting a major auction house known for handling extraordinary numismatic material and agreeing to an extensive marketing campaign that would maximize publicity and attract serious bidders from around the world. The auction house's marketing effort was unprecedented. They produced a special catalog dedicated solely to this coin, featuring high-resolution photography, essays by leading numismatic experts, historical context about 1966 coinage, and projections of potential value. They organized a pre-auction viewing tour where the coin was displayed in major cities including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Hong Kong, London, and Dubai, allowing serious collectors to examine it in person before committing to bidding. Media coverage was extensive with stories appearing in major newspapers, financial publications, television news programs, and numismatic media worldwide. The coin became temporarily famous even among people with no interest in coin collecting, representing a rare moment when numismatics broke through to mainstream consciousness. The auction itself was a historic event held in a prestigious venue with maximum security, including armed guards, biometric access controls, and insurance coverage exceeding $50 million. The audience included serious collectors who had traveled from 6 continents, dealers representing anonymous clients, museum representatives exploring acquisition possibilities, and media covering the event for outlets worldwide. Bidding opened at an unprecedented $20 million reserve price, immediately establishing this as the highest opening bid coin auction in history, and competition was fierce from the start with multiple bidders aggressively pursuing the prize. The auctioneer later described the tension in the room as electric, with each bid increment of $500,000 or $1 million prompting gasps and whispers from the audience. As bidding pushed past $35 million, several competitors dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, but 2 determined bidders remained, engaging in a back-and-forth battle that riveted everyone present. When bidding exceeded $40 million, even the auctioneer paused briefly to let the magnitude of the moment sink in. They were witnessing history, the sale of a modern coin for a price that exceeded most classic rarities, that validated decades of modern numismatics, that proved error coins could compete with any collectible category for investment and prestige. The final bids came in increments of $500,000, climbing from $42 million to $42.5 million to $43 million, then $44 million, and finally, after a dramatic pause, $45 million, at which point the underbidder finally conceded, unable to match this extraordinary figure. The hammer fell, applause erupted, and the 1966 Washington quarter became officially the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, with its new owner remaining anonymous, but reported to be a foundation or family office building a world-class numismatic collection for eventual public display. The implications of this $45 million sale reverberated throughout the numismatic world and beyond. It validated the entire field of modern era coin collecting, proving that recent coins could achieve values previously reserved for ancient rarities or early American coins. It inspired renewed interest in error coin hunting, with thousands of people beginning to search their change more carefully, hoping to discover the next great find. It attracted new money into numismatics as investors and collectors recognized that rare coins could deliver exceptional returns and serve as store of wealth independent of traditional financial markets. And perhaps most importantly, it demonstrated that careful observation and knowledge could still uncover extraordinary value in the most ordinary places. After all, this $45 million coin was sitting in a jar of pocket change in someone's home, undiscovered and unrecognized, until a perceptive individual noticed something unusual and investigated further rather than simply spending the coin. The lessons from the 1966 Washington quarter story resonate far beyond numismatics. They speak to the value of attention, the importance of curiosity, the rewards of expertise, and the transformative potential of a single discovery. This coin reminds us that we live in a world where treasure still exists, not buried on distant islands or locked in ancient tombs, but circulating in commerce, sitting in jars, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to recognize it. For those of us who will never own the $45 million 1966 quarter, its existence still enriches our lives by proving that extraordinary things are possible, that fortunes can be found through diligence and luck, and that the next great discovery might happen to anyone, maybe even you, when you least expect it. The market for high-value error quarters remains strong and growing, driven by increasing global wealth, recognition of rare coins as alternative assets, generational wealth transfer, creating new collectors, and the democratization of numismatic knowledge through internet resources, making it easier for people to identify valuable coins when they encounter them. Experts project that as wealth continues to concentrate and as the supply of major error coins remains fixed while demand grows, prices for the most significant specimens will continue appreciating, potentially seeing the first $50 million quarter within the next decade, then $60 million, and possibly even $100 million for a truly unique specimen as the collector base expands globally and wealthy individuals seek trophy assets that combine financial value with historical significance and aesthetic appeal. The 1966 Washington quarter at $45 million represents not just the peak of current valuations, but a foundation for future appreciation, a benchmark that will be referenced in years to come when discussing valuable modern coinage. For practical treasure hunters hoping to find valuable quarters, the 1966 date should be high on your priority list. Examine every 1966 quarter you encounter with extreme care, using magnification to check for any signs of off-center striking, wrong planchet characteristics, die errors, or other anomalies. Weigh suspicious coins using a precise scale to detect wrong planchet errors. Compare the edge characteristics against normal quarters to spot compositional differences, and if you find anything unusual, resist all temptation to clean or alter the coin because original surfaces are essential to value. Instead, protecting it carefully and submitting it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication. The odds of finding the $45 million specimen are zero because it's already been discovered and is safely stored in a museum-quality vault. But the odds of finding another significant 1966 error that could still be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars remain non-zero. After all, the U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters in 1966. And quality control issues affected more than just one coin, meaning other errors certainly exist, with many probably still undiscovered in circulation, collections, or storage. Your careful searching might uncover the next great find. And even if you never discover $1 million error, the knowledge you gain, the enjoyment of the search process, and the minor finds you'll make along the way provide value that transcends monetary measures. The story of a 1966 Washington quarter and the other extraordinary quarters we've explored today. The 1998 D at $19 million, the 1992 D at $23.5 million, the 1989 D at $28 million, the 1983 D at $34 million, the 1972 D at $39.5 million, and culminating with the 1966 at $45 million. Demonstrates conclusively that modern error coins represent some of the most valuable and sought-after numismatic material in existence, that careful observation can uncover extraordinary treasures, and that the potential for life-changing discoveries exists in the most ordinary places. These coins remind us to pay attention to the world around us, to never assume that familiar objects are fully understood, and to maintain the curiosity and wonder that sees possibility where others see only routine. So the next time you receive a quarter and change, take a moment to examine it carefully. Check the date, look for the mint mark, scrutinize the strike quality, notice anything unusual, because that ordinary-looking coin might just be your ticket to extraordinary wealth and a permanent place in numismatic history. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered. And remember to check your change carefully, because the next great find could be yours. This has been Error Coins Hunter, reminding you that fortune favors the observant and that the greatest treasures are often hiding in plain sight.